This video is brought to you by Project APIS-M. In today's video, I want to explore an interesting research question. What would happen to honeybee virus infection if we expose infected honeybees to high temperatures for a long period of time? Did you know that heat is a natural defense against virus infection? Although it might sound crazy for some people, fever is one of the first defense mechanisms of mammals to fight infectious diseases, including viruses. The heat in this case prevents viruses' proteins from functioning properly, thereby inhibiting the replication inside our bodies. But what about honeybees? Can we expect something similar from them? Well, honeybees are social insects that exhibit certain behaviors that are quite similar to mammals. For example, both mammals and honeybees thermoregulate their bodies and nests respectively. Additionally, mammals feed their young with special food, milk, generating special glands, the mammary glands. On the other hand, honeybees also feed their young with special food, royal jelly, which is also produced in a special gland, the hypopharyngeal gland. There are many other similarities between the two that I will cover in a future video. So it is not completely insane to think that a heat response could trigger a defense mechanism against virus infections, right? That was the question researchers from Montana State University asked themselves in a scientific article published on the journal Viruses. In this publication, the researchers first examined the impact of short-duration temperature stress on the outcome of virus infections in honeybees, and what they found was very interesting. Right after collecting the honeybees, the researchers inject them with a honeybee virus. Then, the bees were allowed to recover for 6 hours before being exposed to a heat shock of 42 Celsius, 107 degrees Fahrenheit, for 4 hours. After that, the bees were transported to an incubator to see what happens with them after 72 hours of incubation, and the results were surprising. Virus replication of bees exposed to high temperatures were 74% lower in the first attempt, 90% lower in the second try, and just to make sure, 87% lower in the third time they repeat the experiment. By the way, all the attempts were statistically significant. Side note, that's the way science is supposed to work. Demonstrating that your results are not a fluke requires repetition, which is the fundamental principle of the scientific method. If whatever you are claiming is true, you must be able to repeat it as many times as you want. Wow, what that really means to beekeepers. Should we start to apply heat treatments to bees to help them to fight virus infections? Well, not so fast. There are two sides of this story that needs to be very well calculated to avoid catastrophic results. For example, data suggests that honeybees can raise the temperature of the brood nest naturally to fight certain bacterial diseases, indicating that bees are used to heat shocks when needed, and therefore heat treatments could have indeed some beneficial effect. However, other studies suggest that crossing certain boundaries, such as exposing bees to excessively high temperatures for prolonged periods, can result in development problems and loss of cognitive abilities in honeybees, indicating that in the long run, heat treatment could also have serious consequences. So what's the right thing to do? Should we help honeybee colonies in this way? And if so, what's the right protocol? Well, that's the $1 million questions here. Right now, the best course of action is to gather more information and learn as much as possible about the phenomenon. There are currently more questions than answers regarding this procedure. For example, does it work for all honeybee virus infections? Are there any side effects on the long run to the bees? Does it harm the queens or the viability of the sperm inside the spermatheca? These and other questions still need to be addressed in order to make sure a heat application would be a viable choice for beekeepers. But what about Varroa mite? I am aware that beekeepers right now are using heat treatment against Varroa mite. It is a fact that Varroa mite is more sensitive to the high temperatures than honeybees, and beekeepers are trying to take advantage of that knowledge and creating devices that are all over the market right now, where you can put a plate inside the colony and basically cook the whole colony in a specific temperature for a specific amount of time in the hope that you're going to be able to kill only Varroa and do not damage the honeybees. When I talk to beekeepers in the field, as everything that we know regarding beekeeping, some beekeepers report good results, other beekeepers report bad results, and right now I don't have a clear-cut answer about what happened to the bees in the long term. As you saw in the video, there are evidences that temperature can compromise the development of the honeybees and the cognitive abilities. If the honeybees start to lose their way to learn, they're gonna have difficulties to find food, they're gonna have difficulties to compete in nature, and that honeybee hive might be compromised in the long run and slowly have a problem that's gonna be very difficult for beekeepers to measure with their own eyes. So my advice is, let's get more information, let's test different things before we do recommendations and start to apply in many different hives at the same time. But I don't want to go into that. There is much more about this heat treatment for Varroa mite. I'm working on a video specifically for that. I want to go back a little bit and talk about the virus part of that. It is very interesting, this whole thing with these social organisms. They behave like mammals, and there are evidences that bees, in the presence of some bacteria and some fungus, they're able to raise the temperature, and researchers believe this is a kind of a social fever. The raising of that temperature kind of compromises the ability of the pathogen to survive in that environment. That's very interesting to see how bees evolve to fight pathogens and pests. What is more fascinating to me, that now there is more evidence. Researchers were able to show that temperature has an effect on the virus replication. But again, there is much more questions than answers here. They only test for one virus. The main viruses of honeybees were not tested. And on top of that, the researchers dive a little deeper in the molecular level to try to understand what those responses are. And there is a lot of good information that I want to share with you guys, but not today, because I invited the leading author of this paper to talk to me about his research in a live stream event. So we don't have a specific date yet. So that being said, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button so you get notified. And perhaps more important than anything, join my email list. It's much easier for me to communicate directly to you through email. I cannot trust the YouTube to reach you guys. I know a lot of you guys are complaining that you're missing the live streams. And the reason is that the YouTube do not reach everybody, and I don't know why. So the best way to know everything that's going on inside the Hive TV is joining our email list. I want to thank Project Apis M. Project Apis M is doing a fantastic job funding very important research projects regarding honeybee health that can generate powerful information for beekeepers. And I'm very pleased to see this kind of research being funded. So Project Apis M, thank you very much. I also want to thank my patrons that allow me to make those videos for everybody. So your financial contribution every month is really important to keep this running. Please consider to join our Patreon community. I talk with everybody there. Everybody participate in the building of those videos. And if you have some extra time, please watch this video right here to learn more about bees. Thanks for watching Inside the Hive.tv, the show about bees. See you guys next week.